Hey guys, this is your EPL Matchday 3 opening line report, out a day later than planned. Was planning to do this last night, but I wasn't expecting Manchester United to go out of the Carabao Cup. So wanting to do that content, wanting to speak about that, or not wanting to, but needing to speak about that, took priority. But I tried a couple of videos last night. They were really bad, overly aggressive. Needed to cool down, needed to collect my thoughts, did a better video, I think, this morning. Then I did my appearance on VSiN, and now we can do the opening line report. This isn't a replacement for the EPL show. The EPL show will always have a lot more detail. It will go a lot more in depth. But here, this is just an opening line reaction, and these opening line reactions should really be happening, as I said, more so on Wednesday. But just wasn't in the right frame of mind really to talk about something which is completely different to what the main focus would have been, which would have been reacting to Manchester United, which I have done. I'll have to talk about Man United again in a second because it's the second game on my list, but we'll start with Chelsea and Fulham in the West London derby, where Chelsea, the 8-15 favourites, are 7-2 on the draw. It's 9-2 on Fulham. Both teams unbeaten so far in the EPL after the first two games. Fulham have 2 draws. Chelsea have a win and a draw. They looked impressive in their comeback against West Ham. Not so impressive the week before when they couldn't break down Palace. But Crystal Palace haven't lost for 12 or 13 games. And during that span, they played a cup final against Man City. And they played a Community Shield against Liverpool. And they've lifted both of those trophies. So they know how to not get beat, which is what they did at Stamford Bridge. And when you've had a Club World Cup campaign that's run long, you cannot expect to come into the season fully fit. And Chelsea didn't look fully fit and didn't look like they knew how to go on and win that game. Although during the pre-season, they did beat Leverkusen and AC Milan comfortably. Put weight into that as much as you want. But I put enough weight into it to think that they'll be able to hand Fulham their first defeat of the season. They're particularly strong at home, especially defensively, where this Chelsea team have only conceded 18 goals. They only conceded 18 goals in 20 home league matches last season under Enzo Maresca. The Cottagers have had to come from behind in both Premier League games so far this season to rescue a point. But if they fall behind against Chelsea, I think Chelsea will shut up shop and see this game out relatively comfortably. If you're looking for an add-on, I would take under 4.5 goals. I don't think this gets to 5. Chelsea have scored exactly twice in 3 of the last 5 meetings with Fulham. And a couple of goals here again would be enough to take the points. Up next, we have to look at Man United again. And they are the 2-5 favourites at home against Burnley. It's 4-1 on the draw. And it's 7-1 on Burnley. I do think that United will find a way to win this game. At some point, pride needs to kick in, even if it's a case of these players not sticking to the formation. If it's just a case of these players competing harder, competing at the same level as Burnley, knowing that their reputations are on the line here. Because whilst player after player after player after player can play for Manchester United and they can throw managers under a bus and they just get another one, and then if they don't like that manager, they can throw them under the bus. Well, we've seen with Sancho, Garnacho, Anthony, Rashford, you're not necessarily bulletproof when it comes to throwing the manager under the bus. At some point, another manager is going to come in and he's going to be watching your performances and he's going to formulate an instantaneous review on you, which could affect your future at the club, be it under this manager or be it under a different manager. So I do believe Manchester United will find a way to win. But in no way am I interested in taking us at shorter than -200 here. They've not been convincing at all under this manager. Their home form is poor. They've lost 8 of the last 13 home Premier League matches. And you can actually get Burnley here with a 2-goal head start on the Asian handicap market, which pushes if Burnley lose by 2 goals to this Man United team. And you only lose money if Man United come out here and pump Burnley by 3. Even Burnley, the worst team in the EPL, are not getting pumped by Man United at this juncture by 3 goals. So I'd be looking at Burnley +2. Sunderland and Brentford, despite the fact that both of them already picked up wins, I still see this as a relegation 6-pointer. I still see this as 2 of the weakest teams in the Premier League. I'd have them both in the bottom 5. Sunderland are actually home underdogs here, which doesn't make sense to me. 23-10 on the draw, and Brentford come here as around about a 5-4 favourite. I'd be looking at Sunderland at those prices on the double chance market. They were definitely more impressive at home against West Ham than they were against Burnley. I think they'll be able to edge out a Brentford team here who are probably fortunate to hold out against Aston Villa. In midweek, they won in a cup against Bournemouth, but that was a heavily rotated Bournemouth team. I don't know why. I don't know why a team like Bournemouth would rotate in the cup. You're in no danger of being relegated, whilst realistically, you're not going to finish in the European places to qualify for either the Champions League or the Europa League. Maybe Europa Conference League, but the Europa Conference League is also the prize for a cup. It's also a really good day out for your supporters if you can get to Wembley. If the draw opens up, you've got a great chance of getting to Wembley. So I don't know why teams like Bournemouth do this and sacrifice their place in the cup. We actually talk about Bournemouth next. They're travelling to Tottenham. Tottenham still have a 100% record. They're the 8-11 favourites to win in this spot. 16-5 on the draw. And it's also 16-5 on Bournemouth. My initial take here is to take Tottenham. However, Areola has had a lot of success previously against Thomas Frank as a manager. Now, Frank doesn't necessarily set up the same way here with Tottenham as he does with Brentford because he has different personnel. But it is worth noting, and there's probably not a lot of value here on Tottenham at 8-11. I think looking at goals here, BTTS over 2.5 goals, maybe even pairing them together might be the way to go. Bournemouth lost 4-2 away to Liverpool in their only away game so far in the EPL this season. But both teams have now scored in 14 of the last 16 away from home. Tottenham coming into this game off the back of keeping 2 clean sheets so far in the Premier League. I don't think that can continue. During Bournemouth's run of seeing both teams scoring 14 of the last 16 away games, that has included playing Arsenal, Chelsea and Man City. Tottenham generally play out high-scoring games against Bournemouth at home, but I'd be wary of all old stats when we're talking about this Tottenham team under Thomas Frank, because we saw last week that they could be a lot more defensively compact and difficult to break down than other Tottenham teams have been under this much more organised manager. Up next, we're looking at Leeds against Newcastle. We're looking at Wolves against Everton, where Wolves are a narrow favourite at 13 to 8-11-5 on the draw, and Everton come here as a 2-1 underdog. I'd be taking Everton in the draw no bet market. I think that these odds are not right. I think Wolves are definitely a team who could go down this season, and Everton can build off the back of winning a home game and bouncing back from a really poor performance on the first day of the season against Leeds. Now we get to Leeds against Newcastle, where Newcastle come as a 6-5 favourite. It's 12-5 on the draw, and it's 5-2 on Leeds. I was hoping for a better price on Newcastle because I thought this is a really good spot to take them. I think they've had 2 good performances so far, and their points tally doesn't really tell the story of their season so far, which has been 2 good performances. Should have won against Villa, and should have got that point against Liverpool when they came back with 10 men. They'll start this game with 11. There isn't a lot of Leeds players who I can make a case for getting into this Newcastle team. They're a far better team, and they should pick up their first win of the season here at Ellen Road. Newcastle obviously will be disappointed by the fact they have only picked up the point and the fact they did lose 3-2, but that was a performance that I think will galvanise them. When you see them coming off the pitch, when you see Eddie Howe applauding the supporters, all of the supporters were applauding back. There isn't a negative feeling towards Newcastle, what they've done so far this season, even though they've got themselves a point. Whilst when you look at Leeds, it really was a reality check because they were completely outclassed by Arsenal. And they come up here against a Newcastle team who, interestingly, had a perfect record. They won every single game, home and away, against newly promoted teams last season. And I expect them to start against newly promoted teams with a win here on Saturday evening. Up next, we're looking Brighton against Man City, where Brighton are a 16-5 home underdog. It's 14-5 on the draw, and Man City comes to Brighton as a 5-6 favourite. What were Man City doing last week? They basically handed the 2-0 lead over to Tottenham and then could not get back into the game. I had my doubts about Man City going into the season. I wasn't convinced by the fact they beat Wolves, who are going to be a relegation candidate this season. And here you have 2 teams who have a philosophy to play out from the back against each other. They're both going to be playing out from the back, and they're both going to be pressing each other. This game is going to be won in transition. And the team who makes the least mistakes will win. I'm going to go with City to bounce back here. They have the better players. I've not been impressed by Brighton's start to the season, only picking up a point so far. But this game gives me the perfect opportunity to talk about why I think tactics are really ruining seasons for teams here. Tactics and philosophies over just doing the common sense thing and winning the game. Sometimes it's completely fine to just kick the ball out. If in doubt, kick it out, or kick it out to your centre forward and hold the ball up. Playing out from the back only works if you have the space to do it. Playing out from the back the way that Man City did last week against Tottenham, that ultimately ends up with you losing the game. I spoke about this on VSiN, and this is ultimately me talking about why I'm sick of hearing about the press, hearing about transition, and hearing about overload. Most teams in the EPL will now play out from the back, and therefore what the other teams want to do is they want to press, they want to win the ball back in transition, which is in the opponent's third of the field, and they want to create an overload because they have enough players implementing that press, and therefore it gives you the man advantage. So with the team playing up from the back, they will usually rely on the midfield two dropping in, and your centre-backs will pick up the ball. They'll try and move forward, or your midfielders will try and carry it forward. Your fullbacks here, they'll bomb forward up the pitch and try to provide support to your wingers, your number 10 and your centre forward. So the idea is to rely on these four footballers here to carry the ball up the pitch. And once you can do it successfully, if you can beat the press, you will have the overload. If they win the ball back here in transition with their pressing, they will win the ball back in transition and they will have the overload because these players will be up against the four who lost the ball. It's ridiculous that this is what we are talking about in the EPL right now. The fact that this is seen as some sort of revolutionary tactic when everybody's doing it. At the end of the day, the teams that are better at it will win games if everybody's doing it. The teams that are better at it will be the better teams who have more money to spend on the players who can do it. Therefore, the status quo will remain as your top teams in the Premier League will still be your top teams in the Premier League. Arsenal don't do it. Arsenal don't play this way. Liverpool didn't play this way last season under Arne Slot. And the teams who broke away from the pack, who were successful, the likes of a Nottingham Forest, they didn't do it either. They had a safety first approach. They kicked the ball out when they needed to play. They needed to kick it out. They played out from the back when they needed to play out the back. They pressed when they needed to press. They defended well with plenty of men behind the ball, and they tried to break in transition, and they're able to do so because they're reliant on their fast wingers, which last season were Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga. That was the blueprint for Nottingham Forest to be successful, just not being as idiotic as the other teams who play suicide football without the talent to actually do it. So it's ridiculous that this is where we're at. This is the biggest league in the world, biggest league on the planet, most watched league on all of the planet. The most watched sports league in all of the planet is hiring a bunch of managers who are all playing the same tactics and being caught out on a weekly basis. And the team that makes the least mistakes will win this game between Brighton and Man City. Nottingham Forest versus Fulham, Nottingham Forest versus West Ham, sorry. Nottingham Forest are the 4-6 home favourites, 11-4 on the draw and 17-4 on West Ham. This is the right price because Forest looks solid again and West Ham look like a mess. What's crazy is Forest manager Nuno Espirito Santo might not even make it after the international break because he's had a falling out with this crazy owner who makes his players like Gibbs White do hostage videos when they sign for the club, when they stay for the club, when they were supposed to go to Tottenham. But here I've got to ride Forest. Confident start to the season. They should have enough to get past the West Ham 2 and an absolute mess. They've lost all of their 3 matches so far this season, including an exit to the Cup, and the supporters are turning. There's a reason why Graham Potter is the favourite to be the first manager to go. I actually haven't looked at that today. I don't know if he still is or whether Amorim is now, but one of those 2 managers will go. And if Nuno goes before them, that will be an absolute crime. I expect him to win this game, and it'll be very hard to get rid of him if he has 7 points on the board. The game of the weekend is next. Liverpool hosting Arsenal. Arsenal travel to Anfield as a 23-10 underdog. Liverpool here are an 11-10 favourite, and it's 5-2 here on the draw. I can't see Arsenal losing the game. I honestly can't. Everybody seems to be travelling to Anfield and scoring. Everybody seems to be playing against Liverpool, and scoring a couple of goals. Even Bournemouth travelled to Anfield and they scored a couple of goals. So why would Arsenal not score 2 goals here? And if they can score 2 goals, they're in a very good position to win the game or at least take a point from it. So my main lean here will be to take Arsenal on the double chance market. Liverpool have won their first 2 Premier League games, but the defence looks unbelievably shaky. Bournemouth scored 2, Newcastle scored 2 despite having 10 men. So you would fancy Arsenal to replicate that achievement. If Arsenal can just win 6 or 7 corners here based on their set pieces so far this season, that might be enough to score a couple of goals against Liverpool alone, given the fact that Liverpool don't look steady from corners. This back line doesn't look steady. They're over-reliant on Virgil van Dijk. They now have these attacking fullbacks there, which is something they got away from last year. Robertson and Trent were expected to be more defensive. Now you have Frimpong and Kirkes, and you don't even actually have them available for this game. I do expect Alexis McAllister to come back to play alongside Gravenberch. That should make them a little bit more solid, whilst Arsenal are missing Bukayo Saka. But I think Liverpool's injuries are more concerning. I think Liverpool's performances have been more worrying. I think Arsenal will come here to be steady, and like they're going to be in all games, I think there's an ethos at Arsenal if they can concede the least number of goals in the league, whilst turning those 14 draws into wins. Like I've said multiple times, I think they'll feel like they'll win it. This is a team who will probably concede somewhere between 20 and 25 goals this season, and that will lead to them winning the EPL. And they'll come here and they'll be very, very difficult to break down. If you're hard to break down and you score 2 goals, you might win at Anfield. I'm going to take Arsenal in the double chance market not to lose. The final game we will be covering here will be between Aston Villa and Crystal Palace, where Villa are 10-11 favourites, 13-5 on the draw, and it's 3-1 here on Palace. I don't know what to do with this game. Villa don't look good. They do look like they've got goals in them. Crystal Palace will come here to try and contain Villa and try to win the game on the break. But obviously, it's a big loss to lose Eze. Gay's now been linked to Liverpool. I'm not sure how great the morale is currently at Crystal Palace. Is this a team who are suddenly going to start dropping points? In their manager, you have a manager who's known for not starting the season well under Glasner. But so far this season, Palace haven't suffered a loss. They're also dealing with the Thursday-Sunday dichotomy, which is something they've not dealt with before. They're having to play a Europa Conference League game tonight as well. So I would lean Villa, but I think this could be a game that goes under 2.5 goals, which is a plus money selection at even money plus 100, plus 100. Because if you see these two teams, you're not expecting a low-scoring game. But statistically, that's what we're looking at here. You've got a Villa team who aren't scoring a lot of goals. You have a Villa team, in fact, crazy stat, who only had 3 players that scored more than 3 goals last season. Rodgers, Watkins and Duran, who's not here. So they're not packed with goal scorers. They're not packed with players who can create a moment. Last year, they finished the season strongly, but they relied heavily on loans. Asensio and Rashford were really good for this team. And I think it's been overlooked what they did for them. And their poor business is also being overlooked as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals in my final lean here. So that's it for me in the opening line report. To get detailed information on these games, be sure to check out the EPL show on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, the Soccer Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. To get all of my official plays, head over to lockbetting.com. If you get the Ultimate Pack, that's a package that has delivered 146 months in a row of transparent and tracked profits. Transparent and tracked because you can see all of the spreadsheets that accumulate to 146 months. They are the latest spreadsheets are posted at lockbetting on Instagram, and the 3 latest are pinned to the top of the page. If you want to see the historical spreadsheets, they're over at lockbetting.com, where you can sign up for the service. But I encourage you, go to the Instagram at lockbetting, have a look at the spreadsheets, have a look through the latest 3 pinned to the top, look at the type of bets we do, the sports we bet on, and most importantly, how we manage a bankroll. You do not need a lot of money to get involved with this service, and you can start investing in sports instead of gambling on sports and be with a service that's never, ever had a losing month in sports betting. Thanks for listening.